Obviously, there's a danger in me trying to do some quick hits on book 4 because my entire dissertation was on book 4. So obviously I have a lot to say about book 4, but I think I can try and restrain myself and just give you some sort of quick pictures of what book 4 is about. Book 4, starting in Psalm 90 and going to 106, only 4 of the 17 Psalms there contain lament characteristics. So we've seen a shift away from where there were so many laments dominating book 3. Book 4 shifts that concern a little bit. It is a primarily anonymous book where most of our songs up to now have had some name of the singers, whether it's Korah or David. 10 of them lack a superscription in book 4 in the Masoretic text. Book 4 also has the only Mosaic psalm, and I actually think that's a rather significant thing. The very first psalm of book 4 is a psalm of Moses. And so it's worth talking about an answer to Psalm 89. And when we looked at Psalm 89, I was talking about how these questions, where do you go to when God doesn't seem to make sense? Davidic covenant has passed away, this unconditional covenant that was supposed to be forever. It seems God's broken his word. What do we do with that? Both Wilson and DeClasse Walford and also myself have said that Psalm 90 in some ways is a response to that question of Psalm 89, where Ethan the Ezrahite is wondering, where do I go to find some God that makes sense anymore in light of David's throne being cast down? Moses comes on the scene as this first psalm in book 4 as an answer to that. James Sanders said that when you have a crisis, you can't have a new voice of authority. Only an old voice of authority will do. You need someone from ancient times to speak to that kind of crisis. And in some ways, book 4 is answering the question of what do we do with Davidic covenant being gone by saying, remember Moses? Remember Moses stood back before David. You've forsaken Sinaitic covenant. You forsook Torah, and Moses the mediator there. In fact, the prayer, the song of Moses in Psalm 90 has a lot of vocabulary in common with Exodus 32, where God and Moses are having the conversation after the golden calf incident when Moses prays for the people then. So perhaps that connection signaling an intercession. You have Moses interceding on behalf of the people to try to answer this. And so we see a shift, I would argue, away from the emphasis on David as king and trying to answer those questions of David as king into book 4, where we see a new interest in Yahweh as king. In fact, Psalm 93, 95 through 99 are all known as enthronement psalms. They all have this phrase, Yahweh Malach, the Lord reigns, or the Lord has become king. And many suggest, starting with Herman Mowinckel, that this might be used at a particular enthronement festival. It was true that in ancient Babylon, Marduk was enthroned as the king of the land every new year in Babylon. So some have suggested maybe these psalms were used at Rosh Hashanah every year, and Yahweh could become king. Certainly we've seen Yahweh and Marduk in parallel in other stories where things have been borrowed and Marduk has been replaced by Yahweh, certainly in creation. Maybe Mowinckel is right, and maybe those parallels extend further. Maybe, we don't know, but it is certain that God is celebrated as king all throughout book 4. And Moses, most of the Mosaic mentions that you get in the Psalms come from book 4, many times in the context of the Psalm itself. So a lot of renewed emphasis on Moses. In fact, Marvin Tate called book 4 a Moses book because you have so many mentions of Moses in that section. And mentions of Yahweh as king. So we're maybe moving away from Davidic monarchy or promoting Davidic monarchy and maybe refocusing, you know what, Yahweh is king in all Israel. And Moses is the one who gave us Torah that reminds us of our responsibilities. And maybe that's where we need to look for answers rather than to look for and try to answer this question of David, which has caused such crisis and exile. So book 4 in many ways providing that answer as we go through the text.